of this activity happening.
Racial mixing, yeah.
Or just not like that, just, just using their women. You understand what I'm saying? And so just another way for them to use their women to get power here. And they did use their women to get power. Why would they need them to vote? Because they're going to tell them how to vote.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Why they need them to work, to take us out of the workforce.
And we see that right now.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's all playing out. But they came here without nothing. So they had to take from us. And so that's the problem that I don't think we understand, that we act like we from somewhere else and this is their homeland. No, Maine is not theirs. Kansas is not theirs. You understand what I'm saying? This is our homeland. And I think that's the problem. I think a lot of people don't understand. Psychologically, when we're fighting this, you can read all the books you want to read if you psychologically inferior to these people who are writing the books
too late.
to keep you down. So you have to know how to decipher through these things, even when you're reading definitions or reading these different books or whatever. So the slave trade is fake as it pertains to American Negroes. These people have never owned us. So show me your slave papers. Show me you coming from Africa. You know what I'm saying? What they'll do, they'll go back so far in their genealogy, and that's just tracing your paperwork, which is just one reference. You know what I'm saying? You're referencing, cross-referencing. But then they'll swab their cheek and say they from Ghana somewhere. Yeah. You know what I mean? Nah, when they grew up in
23andMe.
Like yeah, 23andMe, which is all fake, and how that work out. Man, I just think the psychological warfare that's being waged against our people is real. It needs to be addressed. You know what I mean? And it's like we have to wait till somebody else outside of us address it. No, we have to address it as far as, putting pressure on these people for miseducating us.
Right.
I don't think that we need them to teach us who we are. But if we're having as a collective, right, we got root stories and, all these different things that has been prevalent in our community. Now it's not. Like the streets been talking, man. So that's what I said. Now, man, people are talking about being from here, whether you believe that, you're from here and at any capacity, whether you call yourself a Native American, Indian, you know what I'm saying, or whatever, you're waking up to this movement, this thing. See what I'm saying? Yeah. So there is a difference between American Indians and Native Americans. We are Aboriginal. Yeah. They're created. They came here as refugees. That's when people say, you're not from the Res. I'm like, Res? Like when Native Americans should tell me that right now. Should be like, yo, Res, we own land, bro. The reservation is the projects. We've been here for thousands of years. Yeah. And see, going back to that, we could prove that the culture was here for over 15,000 years. You know what I'm saying? Like, here's the culture of pyramid building. Here's the culture of this. Here's the culture of that.
Mississippian culture.
The Mississippian culture, right? It's been here. They can call it Carusa, all these terms are modern terms, right? But the proof is still in the pudding, that the evidence is that the science is that we've been here and that we're the first people. So them using all of the tricks and things to take us socially, politically, economically, spiritually away from our land is the problem. Yes. And so they silence people, you know what I'm saying? They do. I'm the most banned person on YouTube, bro. Wow. Yeah. There's a lot of reasons for that, but I'm shadow banned, I've lost channels, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. So, well, we keep fighting, man. And like I said, the community is growing in spite of that. You know what I mean? In spite of being censored, in spite of being banned, and, all the things that they do to stop us from pushing this information out, you know what I mean? But, once again, you're not supposed to be afraid to tell the truth. So that's what we out here doing, man, telling the truth. Real talk.
Chief, for all the people that's getting into this information and learning more, what are some good first steps to take for research purposes of knowing who we are, who to talk to, all of those good things?
I mean, first off, knowing who you are, the right and exact knowledge of who you are. Wow. First, that's gonna make you feel good. However you could do it. If you live where your people are from, say you're from the South, then you can go to the courthouses, things like that, to get more records, birth certificates, death certificates, whatever, then that only goes so far back. And so only so much data has been put into the computer. So you have to go to these different places. So your people from South Carolina, you got to go there, check the newspapers, whatever. But investigating who you are, who your people are, I think is the first step.
Yes, sir.
You know what I mean? Like you could talk about all this other stuff, but knowing who you are, I think is the first step of it. You know what I mean? And you know, when you research of people, man, it makes you feel good to know who you are. And you see that your people are landowners and free people. You know what I mean? Yeah, I seen. You ever watch Henry Louis Gates Jr.?
All the time growing up, yeah.
You know how he do the he'd take and be
Oprah. I remember when he said, "Yeah, we're gonna swab her mouth and just say she's like Swahili."
Right.
So yeah,
but he does the genealogical work though.
He
right?
does. He does.
And I heard him say one time. He said, "Listen, as it pertains to African Americans, he is hard pressed doing his work. He's one of the top genealogists, right?
Right.
He has a PhD, so we're gonna give him his respect, right?" He said that he's hard pressed. He can't find Africans in slavery in our genealogy. Like, how? Because it didn't exist. It's a social play. They're running a game on us. And when we talk to our elders that are still here from the 90s, you know what I'm saying, stuff like that, they literally be like, yo, when you ask them about this, the slave narrative and stuff, they literally tell you it's not real. So just people have to do more investigation. Like I said, knowing who you are as opposed to who Kunta people are or some people from overseas somewhere, some people back in history. What about your people? What the greatness of your people? You know what I'm saying? So yeah, I think knowing more about yourself and your people comes first. Like your people. You know what I mean? And so I think that's the first step, man. Just knowing who you are, man, and then you'll have a little bit more confidence when somebody say, "Who are you?" Because I tell people all the time, "What tribe are you?" I'm the Johnson clan, Johnson tribe. Tribe only means family. They'd be like, "You're Choctaw." I'm Choctaw, you know what I'm saying, and Blackfoot. But I had to learn how to take it away from the Native American concept when we talk about being Aboriginal, being indigenous to this land, using the UNDRIP, which is the United Nations Declaration of the Rights of Indigenous People, or using the ADRIP, which they go together, the American Declaration of the Rights of Indigenous People. Yeah. So ADRIP, UNDRIP, right? Which includes us, but we're on dumb stuff. We're not worried about the real stuff and how to get economic power, how to get our land back. You know what I'm saying? Why are Indians being taxed? Right? A couple of weeks ago, about a month ago, when they were talking about the 14th Amendment, and it was like Trump was talking about Indians not taxed, right? Yeah. And then it was like when they was talking about except for Indians not taxed, and the Native Americans are like, this is not y'all. Well, the word Indian means brown. That's it. Brown. Doesn't mean like it could describe, a people or whatever. When we're talking about the etum of the word, what the word means just means brown, it means dark people. That's it. And so a lot of times people want to be, we have crackatosis. We want to feel like we want to be Native Americans, and we don't want to be niggas with locks and feathers. You know what I'm saying? We want to be them when they're not the original. We're the original. Yeah. So we're the original.
Chief, something that I find very interesting is that anytime for some Black people, if you mention indigenous history, them being tied to the land, they don't want any parts of it. But then we see white people, they love to say that they're Cherokee, or they'll show up, and when you see those meetings and stuff, they're over the boards making all the decisions. It's a white man. Or you'll see on the West Coast, all the natives, right? They'll have casinos, all of these things, but then we don't get any of those things. Why do you think everybody else wants our role, our spot, but then we sometimes try to like drift away from that?
The system, like the Native American concept or whatever, is just a buffer class of people to take us away from power. Why we don't have casinos? Why we don't? You understand what I'm saying? So it's just, once again, man, it's like the Jewish people who created the whole five civilized tribe thing. I did a build on that, man. I had to send it to you. Where we showed, it was basically like the Killers of the Flower Moon, how they just basically got into people's family and killed people off. And yeah, bro, this is what they have done. People have documented, they are documented doing these things to us. Flooding cities, burning down, assassinating people, whatever.
Here
right?
in Georgia,
Right.
Lake Lanier,
Right.
that was flooded.
We can go on and on and on.
Flooded
Right?
cities, to
Famous
your
one,
point. Yeah.
And so with all that being said, right? Where's the, like they say reparations? Well, I say slavery's fake, so you're not gonna get reparations for slavery. Sorry, you know what I mean? You're gonna get reparations for the crimes. We like to say restitution. Well, the first crime, you're legally taxing us. You're taxing Indians. You don't supposed to be taxing Indians, aka Negroes. The Indian was one of the misclassifications according to them. Not according to me, according to them, Indian was a term that they called us. It's like Negro. Indian was a term that they called us. So of course they want to take us, they want to get away from these things so we don't know who we are. Well, we are the Indians. We are the American Indians. So you are legally taxing us. So let's start there. If we want reparations, I say restitution. You can call it restoration. You can call it whatever you want to call it. I just think that reparation is attached to fake slavery. And they already getting reparations already for slavery, for their slavery.
They did.
And their internment camps and stuff here in America. Wow. They are literally getting reparations for that. And we have been literally catching hell, catching the bad and the stick while pushing for their agendas. For the Leo Frankians and all these other people, man. Yeah, man, like I'm tired of it, bro. Like I said, like I said, I don't like to focus on other people, but if I see you're working for these people and you're pushing an agenda that's hurting our people, I think that we need to address that. You know what I mean? I think people do have the right to grow, but when you're not growing, you know what I'm saying, you're still pushing certain narratives on. I think that needs to be addressed. You know what I mean? So even when we talk about Umar, John, shout out to Umar, like I said, when he was working with them babies, man, 10, 11 years ago, man, he was, that his whole concept, what he was going for the stopping them from being on Prozac and all the medicine and stuff, I was like, yo, this is a good dude. I'm gonna support that. I haven't seen that in years, bro. Like, I haven't seen him do anything. Like, I know trying to build stuff, is difficult, so I'm not gonna touch that. But when we're talking about now you wanna say we American Africans, you know what I mean? He's smart enough to understand what's going on, and he's been attacking the community of people, like calling people pretendians and things of that nature, whatever. Well, you're not an African, you know what I mean? Then you're still pushing Johnson because that's your people, that's from here, you know what I'm saying? And so addressing that as well, we talk about slave names, right? I'm a Johnson. Right. So I remember, I'm a teenager, and I'm getting this information, 5% stuff and all that, right? You know what I mean? And we're talking about, you want to change your name to Akbar and, you know what I'm saying? Muslim names, right? One slave name to another, right? But not really, you're not trading a slave name, you're trading your family's name. These are not slave names. These are not given to us by Europeans. These names, Johnson, Jackson, Washington, are our names. These are American names. And so you can go through pretty much every name that we carry are American names. They didn't bring them here from Europe. They tricked us. So they took our names. We didn't take their names. And so when that, when you talk about the concept of being the son of John, that's all it is.
Break
you know
the
what I'm
name
saying?
down.
Yeah, I'm a Johnson. So when my grandfather created the name, he's the son of John. So my great-grandfather's name is John. He's the son of John. So now we all Johnsons based off of that. But of course, my grandfather has a surname as well. See what I'm saying? But he's the son of him. That's how, Jackson. So that's how that goes. It has nothing to do with these people owning us, and they don't carry these surnames. And nobody ever talk about that though, right? That they don't carry Jackson and Johnson and Washington, right? They say that Washington, 92% of the people that carry the name Washington, surname Washington, are Aboriginal, copper-colored people. It's the number one name for Negroes, which means Washita, Washita. That's nothing, that's where it comes from. It's a Choctaw word. You have a Choctaw, like Algonquin people, Washita, like Washita, they're still there right now, Negroes. So this country, everything. So when we talk about George of the Washita, George Washington is a Negro. It's whitewash history. It's literally whitewash history. Like we're the governors, the senators, the presidents, the rulers of this land, brother. And so they washed that out of history, and it's coming back. And so a lot of that history needs to be put into the schools, real American history. If y'all want to talk about real slavery and then talk about y'all coming here and change, talk about how y'all got it. You know what I'm saying? They put that on us, but it's really them. Think about it. When these people got to Georgia,
Man, I was just having this conversation, Chief. I was like, most Europeans got here like Ellis Island, bro. You talking about early?
we're talking about Georgia.
Oh, Georgia itself. What was that like? Late 1600s, early 1700s.
In here?
Mm-hmm.
No, when you start doing your research on all these people, man, they didn't get here till after Reconstruction.
Right.
They push like they make us assume certain things.
Mm-hmm.
Like people assume, hey, because I had ancestors that were living in this time period that they had to be slaves, right? You know what I'm saying? You just assume that just because they're people of color that live in Alabama that they was a slave. And then when you're doing your research on it, you're like, well, these people weren't slaves. These people were landowners. These people had businesses, you know what I'm saying, had stuff going on. So when you do your genealogy to find out who you are, the right and exact knowledge of who you are, that will empower you more than anything else.